Okay, I hope this doesn't become a meme, but I seem to want to remake my game every half a year or so. I swear I always have a good reason to, but yeah, I'm about to do it for the 5th time. And I plan to do it in a month, the last month before the year ends. I'm not exactly gonna start from scratch, but I did remove like 20k lines of code. So let me explain to you why that was actually the best decision right now. But first let me tell you why I did this the last 3 times. I've come up with the idea for this game actually almost 3 years ago, and at that time I didn't even know Rust one bit. I was your usual Unity ND for many years. But I wanted to do a prototype real quick and I didn't want to fuck with Unity anymore. So I texted my friend Kuviman, whose stream you gotta check out by the way. I think he's like making his own language now. But then he was focused on his own engine called Gang. So I asked if he wants to make a quick prototype on his engine. Yeah, back then I was sure we can make something fun in a week, lol. Anyway, at some point we even worked as a little team of 4 developers, but I still mostly had no idea about many details of the game. It needed a lot of experiments. I changed the gameplay a couple of times, many ideas have been thrown out, then I came to this gameplay similar to Super Auto Pets, and I had to seal it in. At that point there was a lot of legacy code from first prototypes, and I just really needed to come up with a new architecture with my new understanding of how the game will work. By that time I felt a lot more comfortable with Rust, so I have rewritten everything from scratch and it was super fun. Then I tried making my own UI system and realized just how much pain it is. I also tried ECS in the form of Legion Crate. At some point I just realized that to be most efficient I need to take some better solutions that other people made and supported. And then I decided to first use egui for UI, because immediate mode GUI library makes such a good code that it's easy to work with. And then I learned a bit about Bevy engine and just fell in love with it. Back then it was version 0.11, but already I loved working with it. So yeah, second time I've rewritten the game from scratch was moving to Bevy engine and egui for UI. Then at some point I started to think about multiplayer and suddenly got rated on Twitch by one of the developers of SpactimeDB, and immediately it seemed like a perfect solution for my multiplayer needs. That was the version of the game that eventually, during spring of 2024, saw its first players. And then finally I knew I managed to make something fun, that people would actually want to play for some time. But by that point I had to learn Bevy engine and egui from scratch, and my skills with each have grown a lot. And when I was planning the architecture I had a very basic understanding of either. Most importantly, back then I had no idea how the multiplayer will work in the game and what I will use. So yeah, I remade the architecture from scratch, considering SpacetimeDB and all the multiplayer features I will need. This took me 4 months from June, and I released the game on October 1st. I was really happy with how the code looked after that. My skills making a code base that's easy to work with really improved, and I could add new features pretty quickly. And now we come to current time. Biggest feature that will make the game what I envisioned back in 2022 will be the system for players to create and add content to the game. I was working on it for the past couple weeks and I started realizing more and more some crucial flaws in my current architecture. Let me show you an example. In a project, you never want one type of thing to be described and stored in many different ways. In my game, one of the main entities is a unit. It has a name, health, power, level, visual representation, and some ability. Players mostly buy those units to make a team and watch them fight each other. So in current code, this unit could be represented 4 different ways. One for storing it as a game asset, basically a single ROM file. Another to store it in a database, plus another for storing combined versions of it with a state to allow one of the main game mechanics, fusion. And then another format for storing a unit in ECS world to allow animations and effect processing. I hate it, but I couldn't come up with another way for it to work and have a good performance. Then I started working on a system I called the incubator. I came up with the idea of splitting heroes into smallest parts and allow players to suggest each part and then link them together. Basically, you would be able to just suggest a name of a new hero, let's call him a hunter. Then somebody else could add a description, for example, on turn end, deal attack damage to furthest enemy. And players would be able to see this in a list of all the descriptions and vote for connection between it and hero name Hunter. And then somebody could actually implement a working ability for that description and link it in the same way. And that's how piece by piece players can create and find the best way to combine together all kinds of heroes and content. Because the best way to let a collective mind solve a problem is to fractionize it into smallest pieces and let each mind think on a different one. I felt really good about this idea and it all finally started to piece together in my head. But then I realized, to add this to the current code, I would have to add a fifth format for storing a unit, and I just couldn't. And then I realized in this format a unit can be represented as a tree of parents and children. My main goal is to describe each content type as a separate single Rust structure, and how they're linked together should also be fixed in the structure definition. So then I came up with this. This is the content structure to describe everything, and this can be represented as a bunch of folders and files, or as a flat structure in DB with one data field and parent field. And as a bonus, it perfectly fits into ECS architecture. I wasn't really using it before. I stored 90% of the things as resources and passed the whole world around functions. But best performance thing about ECS is that if your functions work with separate components, it can actually work in parallel. And here each node will be a separate component. Finally, I started learning Rust macros and oh boy, it's like unlocking a new superpower. I literally write code that then writes code. Now I can make it so I just describe the structure and it automatically adjusts or shows me where I need to add stuff. I realized that with this structure everything in the game can be described. It suddenly became really easy to imagine all the features I want to add, and it feels like this will make the codebase twice as small. Performance might really improve as a bonus. But yeah, this basically touches every part of the game that has something to do with content, which is like 90% of it. It's not so bad because a lot of work in the recent months have been done for UI and all that I get to keep. Anyway, I realized that the easiest way is to just rewrite everything one more time. Some parts of the code I will reuse, but with my Rust skills improved, I can make some stuff way better. And so why not set some unrealistic deadline and make some content out of it? So this December I will start streaming every day at 6 AM and till the end of the year I will release the game with updated architecture for you boys to play. Recently I started streaming on YouTube, so jump in and watch me cook live. Alright, thanks for watching. You can still play the old version. Check it out and join the Discord. Links in the description. See you later.